Wednesday, August 31st. Welcome to the Path Podcast. This is Tani, and I'm here with Auk. Hey, Auk, what you been up to?
Hey, Tani. Things are going well. This is our first. We're recording video on this podcast.
Our first attempt at vlogging. Our podcast.
Vlogcasting.
Whoa, you said it.
Careful. How are things going? Well, I had a lesson in functional strength this weekend. Yeah, I dog sat. Yeah, so this dog was a high energy border collie mix. So I started with a 2.5 mile walk, and the dog is not very trained at walking, so it really just pulls the whole time. And so it really is a lesson in like engaging the core and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, a couple hours later, I went on a 4 mile run with this dog.
Nice.
And it really wanted to pull.
Yeah.
And 2 miles into it, my hammies were cramping up.
You got to stretch those hammies to walk a high energy dog, I guess.
I do, really. So, and the next day, my whole body was tired and sore.
I have the privilege of living with a high energy dog.
Right.
And she sometimes likes to pull on walks, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts and had a lot of different people's insight on how to deal with that on walks. So I'll share a couple of tips.
Yeah, would you? Please.
Okay, so a big one is the stop-start.
Oh.
So you just stop, and you can just wait until they're... A big part of it is just being more patient than the dog. So you wait till they stop pulling and then start again.
Right.
The other one is a change of direction, which is a kind of a almost more aggressive version of the stop-start.
Oh.
But what I like to do is incorporate communication in there. So I'm letting the dog know I'm going to stop.
Right. So they get used
to...
So
even though that's not a command they know, they're keying into I'm communicating with them.
Right.
Stuff is happening. They're pattern recognizers.
And do you use the same pattern, like the same phrase?
I try, but you know what I found too is you could just talk to dogs a lot of the time.
Right.
Like definitely recognizable commands have a very powerful kind of leverage point with that relationship.
Yeah.
But they read so much of tone and everything else that they can read a lot into if you just talk to them.
Yeah.
And then another big one is if none of those are working sometimes, I throw the leash on the ground and cross my arms. Immediately she comes back.
Is that right?
Yeah, every time.
Oh,
and that may, you know, I guess I wouldn't try that for the first time in front of traffic or something. Right. You got to know your
with
animal.
Your friend's dog.
Yeah.
Dog sitting.
Yeah.
So how do you any tips for this dog loves to run after squirrels?
I don't think there's anything you can do about that. I mean, squirrel, I don't think there's a solution to that problem.
Right. Throw the leash down and cross your arms. Hope it comes back.
The one time my dog got a squirrel, we were walking past and just like lightning, she got it for a second, then it got away, but she had it in its mouth for a sec.
Oh my gosh.
And for years, every time we walked by that spot, she got all charged up.
Oh.
Very interesting. And then I've noticed that behavior in myself since then.
You
places where I've had conflict or like great success or great failure or injury.
Right. You feel charged up in those.
If I go by those spots, like the spot that we recovered the stolen bike up off 17th, if I drive by there, I get a little charged up.
Right.
Like Rosie does where she walks by with the squirrel spot.
Man. Do you ever see that channel? Not to like advertise channels on the show, but it's called Nature is Metal.
Oh yeah,
and you almost had Nature is Metal.
Yeah, and Nature is.
It is.
Yeah,
featuring Rosie.
Even just my war with the rats in the backyard is metal.
Oh my gosh! Well, I'm glad that the squirrel got away.
Me too. Well, hopefully it lived to fight another day and didn't just avoid a clean kill.
That is true.
Yeah, I had a friend the other day tell me about a zombie squirrel.
Oh no!
Somebody apparently, and I don't condone this, but shot a squirrel with a pellet gun.
Oh no!
And then that squirrel, like days later, was still wandering around the neighborhood, all mangy and haggard,
and nothing had taken it.
Apparently.
Oh my goodness!
Suburbia can be cruel in its way of not
addressing. Yeah. Well, anyways, so yeah, squirrels, high energy dogs, functional strength. I think I like dog sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like being a dog uncle
it is. And then it's the funkle.
or dog grandpa.
The fun uncle. You get to send the dog home at the end of the day.
Yep.
Build some functional strength. I'm into it.
Yep. Get some unconditional love.
That's right. Spoil the dog and then send it home.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was fun. It was fun, and I should do that more often. I think it's going to make me a better bike rider.
Core strength will do that, I think.
Balance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Focus. Yep. Totally.
How about yourself?
I've decided that the rats have taken the last pomegranate from my backyard and strawberry.
Is that because you have no more pomegranates and strawberries?
No, I still have some pomegranates. I actually put one of my successful rat traps was actually in the pomegranate tree on a branch of the tree.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what kind of rat trap? Like the
snap
traditional?
traps.
Oh, right.
I'm not really a fan of the. There's no nice way to do it, but I'm not really a fan of the sticky ones.
Oh, yeah.
And then I don't use the poison because predators and pets can get it.
Right.
I think some of my neighbors are using the poison because I've encountered some confused dying rats, and
right.
I guess that's on their karma.
That's right. If we ever have Brian from the shop on, we should have him tell the story of how he caught a rat in his house in the canyons one time.
He beat Turbo to it somehow?
I don't know if they had Turbo at the time.
That would explain it, because I don't know if anyone's beating Turbo to a rat.
I don't think
They've got
so.
a rat terrier for the listeners.
Man. When I used to go bike riding with Brian, I used to I've become the master of open-ended questions, and I would ask him, how is race prep going? How is the double layered snow boot converted from shoes going? And then it's like pedal around. So
To clarify, I've heard this theory before, but to maybe some people who don't get it, Auk is getting him talking so that Auk can breathe while Brian talks, and maybe that makes it a little more likely that Brian doesn't feel impatient.
That's right. Although I don't think Brian ever feels impatient.
Probably not.
Yeah, no.
Or that, yeah. If it were me, though, I would have that, slight codependent, I don't want him to, I don't want to hold him up.
That was me. That's been me. But I've learned, instead of saying sorry, I just say thank you.
Yeah, that's so healthy. I love it.
So, anyways, yeah. So the pomegranate one was in the tree.
Yeah.
Strawberries? How do you save your strawberries?
Well, so far I'm just focusing on killing rats.
Right.
I've got 3 rats in the last week, which in the past I've had trouble ever catching more than one rat in a 1 month period, because they're smart and they learn and they see what happens.
I agree. We saved peaches this year.
How'd you do it?
I have a peach tree, and last year they were growing beautifully, and then when they'd get to a certain size, man, I don't mind sharing. Right. I really don't mind. Just eat the whole thing. Don't eat 3 bites out of it and then drop it on the floor,
And also just always be slightly beating you to they're almost ripe, and that's the one they take, and there's never any getting ripe.
Yeah, and then they don't eat the whole thing, probably because it's not ripe yet. I would be more than willing to share my ripe peaches, but anyways, even with rats, But no, this year that would be my dear wife's took the lead on this, and we put netting bags over each of the peaches.
Nice.
Years ago, when we toured Japan, we saw fields of peach trees with these nets over every fruit, and we're like, oh my gosh, what kind of person would take that much time to bag every fruit? Me. And
they are delicious, fresh from
They
your own tree.
are.
It's very satisfying.
And we probably saved, 20 to 30 peaches. It really worked. Anyways.
Are those on Amazon or anything?
Yeah, that's where I got them. Different sizes. And right now I have avocados in them, because avocados take a lot longer to ripen. And I never know how long I should leave the avocados on the tree.
Talk to Jeff.
Oh.
He's the
avocado.
He probably does it by feel and can't explain it. Should we move on to corrections?
Something bike related?
So I think it was the first show where we were talking about horse link,
Oh, yeah.
and I was kind of already moving on to the next thought while I described horse link.
We're talking probably about Norco bikes and
I've been
other shit.
meaning to correct myself since then, and I just forgot on the other shows.
Okay.
And I said that the horse link was on the seat stay, and then I said below and in front of the axle, which is physically impossible.
Yep.
If you, and I just misspoke and said seat stay instead of chain stay.
Yeah.
And then noticed when I heard the show, I listened to the show later, and I was like, oh.
Yep.
And then on a recent
torque.
show, we were talking about Norco hardtails, and I was all excited about the fluid, and I had been looking at that one, and I kind of knew a little bit about it, that line. And you brought up the torrent, and I started riffing on the torrent, but I had it wrong. So I kind of had a weird nagging feeling like, did you really know which model the torrent was? Or because all of a sudden I wasn't so sure after the show, so I looked. And the torrent can be aluminum or steel.
Right.
And think like Hanzo ESD type, like really 64-degree head angle.
Yep.
The top shelf build is like $3,700 or something.
Yeah.
So definitely more kind of high speed, stable, and high end, and also a steel and aluminum option compared to the fluid.
Right.
That's the torrent. And I don't know about moving forward. Some torrents have been available 27.5. I don't know if that's still going to be a thing.
Right.
And then the fluids hardtails are like $1,400 to $1,800 ish price range, and like 66-degree head angle ish. So like enduro-y trail hardtail versus like gnarly enduro hardtail, and a little more on a budget. So, but all of them look rad, like top tubes flowing right into the seat stays, and good lines, and good, smart bikes with good geo. And
yeah, I mean, that, like we were saying, I can't get over that there's a whole generation of hardtails that are out now. The Honzo's like that, the Torrents like that. Is it the Laufey?
I think the Laufey might be somewhere in between the Torrent and the
fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hardtails are very impressive these days. Well, thanks for being humble enough to make those corrections.
No, it's the pride and ego that forced me to make them, actually.
Oh, I see.
Actually, Auk.
Actually. Oh, man. Okay. Awesome.
GC Transition announced they're doing a carbon patrol.
Man, yes.
I have the aluminum patrol, and it's sweet. And they say the carbon one's going to be 2.8 pounds lighter, which is kind of enough to catch my like. That's a lot of pounds. 2.8.
I agree. That I have. You heard it here first. Although it's no surprise, I have been somewhat entertaining. Maybe selling my Process.
Yeah.
That.
I think I'm going to sell my Process X.
Process X. That patrol, carbon patrol. Oh my god!
I usually sell bikes by the time there's a new color, and there's been a new color of that one for a minute.
Right.
And the reason I haven't is because I've got those 150 cranks that I'm experimenting with, and the experiment's not quite over. So any minute now, I'm going to sell that one.
Yes. Do you?
And keep the experiment going on a different bike.
Yes.
But it'll be a different phase of the experiment because we won't have the apples to apples of all one bike.
Yep, that is true. I think Luke is also selling his if he hasn't already done so.
Man, we're really softening the market. It's a sweet bike.
It is a sweet bike. Oh, man. You're right.
Climbs well. It's agile for a big mountain enduro bike. It's super mullet friendly.
It's very
quiet.
Very quiet. I heard a quiet tip. How to quiet your bike.
Everyone needs to know more quiet tips.
So I was watching I was listening to Sanjay's bike check on the Bronson. And he talked about, and you can actually, maybe it's more of a question, Velcro on the backing of your brake pads.
So there are certain Shimano brake pads that rattle around in the calipers, and I think it's actually usually when Shimano's out of the very specific finned brake pad that really fits the caliper well, and you get the one that kind of fits in there but isn't really designed for that caliper shape. I think that's what Sanjay's probably dealing with. But I think even sometimes maybe with actual stock pads, Shimano brakes can be a little rattly.
Right.
And so You get that. The fuzzy side of the Velcro, I believe, is what he's using, and
I think so.
You with the sticky back, you put that on the back of your brake pads. I've also heard of people putting like a little bit of like silicone or anything that would deaden noise and squish a little bit.
Right. Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah, what made me think about that is how quiet the Process X is.
But Sanjay's bike check video on that Bronson's awesome, and the reel that Sean did with the build, and it's all ASMR'd out, is pretty rad. I saw that for the first time on the way over, and I was like, whoa.
I need to watch it.
Yeah.
I only listened to it.
You've already shared it on your Instagram, and you haven't really watched it.
Oh no, this is that's
twice you shared it.
Did I share it twice?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I actually probably did. No, that's the how to build a bike in 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is awesome.
So I referenced two things. One is Sanjay's bike check, and the other is the how to build a bike in 60 seconds thing. Sanjay
and the how to build a bike in 60 seconds. If we have any musicians out there, I was thinking that opening like clip clip clip. Someone's going to turn that into like a little musical.
They're going to sample that.
They're going to sample that. Yep.
I could see that
rhythm section.
I could see that.
Both yeah. Both are awesome.
Real quick on that Carbon Patrol,
go for it.
Not available till fall at the soonest, and that'll be probably the early. I think at that time it might be just frames. Like complete bikes are going to be a while.
It is almost fall though.
Like I say, I don't think that's complete bikes either.
All right.
Oh, that's a good one to do a build on.
That is. Oh my gosh. I might just end up selling a frame.
Because you've got a lot of nice parts
on that, yeah.
On your Process X.
Yeah. And I have
on your medium paint fade green to blue Process X.
Yes, with a virtually new RockShox shock on it.
As long as we're plugging stuff. Did you see the Path is doing 18 months no interest in September?
Oh my gosh. I actually did see that.
Yeah, hopefully that makes some people able to get their bike a little sooner.
You know, I mean, like, we are vlogging. Oh man, we are deep down this rabbit
I've been
hole.
not looking at that Shuttle SL like it was like, I don't know what to say, but something that I was afraid to look at.
Sounds like a mock commercial we're doing right now. But anyways, no, I mean, kidding aside, this thing is what, 38
It's like
pounds?
if you sit down next to a famous person at a restaurant, you try to pretend you didn't notice him.
Right. Yeah. If someone zooms in really close, they might be able to see, like, this is a medium.
Finally figured out a way to rewrite that in a way that wasn't chauvinist. It took a minute.
That was good. Yep. The Shuttle SL, I think it's got a 65-degree head angle, 140 travel. Oh, my goodness.
I think a little less than that in the back. They stay on the bikes, right?
Right.
If I remember correct, I don't want to have another correction next show.
Okay.
But yeah, I
A
think
little less than 140, I think you're right.
I think the fork is in that
I think so,
140, 150 range. Man, we're already in over our heads on data. But that's cool. You know, some people are really good at facts.
Yeah.
I'm just okay at them.
I was saying this bike cost about the same as my first grown-up new car.
How much is this bike? 11,599.
11,599. Yep. I think my first grown-up new car was one of those green Honda Civics from 1994. Before they got to that darker green, I thought it was a cool green until I realized it wasn't.
Like a seafoamy tealy green?
It was seafoam.
Yeah.
But I thought it was more dark green, foresty green. But it's really seafoamy teal green. It is.
That color got like really uncool, then really, really cool again.
But anyways, this bike, something to behold.
My first car was $300.
Yeah.
It was a VW Bug, and I bought it from a coworker. I worked in the kitchen at Roma d'Italia.
Right.
And it was a really interesting vehicle because it had kind of a semi manual transmission. It had no clutch, but it had a stick shift.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a separation in the actual stick shifter, and it was separated by springs. And when you touched it, it engaged like a clutching mechanism so you could shift. It was so weird.
Wow.
Needless to say, it wasn't reliable.
Right. My first car, actually, I bartered for my first car. I helped my brother paint his house, and he gave me his old car.
Sweet.
Like almost the first day I had it, the timing chain broke. He felt
That's
terrible.
nasty.
He
A
actually
nasty
felt
repair.
bad. I think it was the first time my brother felt bad about something that we
Did that cause more damage too?
No, it
that's
actually.
lucky.
Yeah. So, anyways.
But yeah, I think this Shuttle SL is going to be maybe. You know how there's often a bike around the shop that's like, oh man, another customer's looking for one of those that we can't get
Yep.
until 3 months from now.
Yep.
I feel like this might be the next one of those. Just like everyone needs one.
I think so.
Everyone who has $10,000 lying around.
11,500, but you can get 18 months no interest.
Yeah, there's less expensive packages coming.
There are $8,200, $8,300 for the SLX XT build. I think so on pre-order.
Yeah. Clarifying on that no interest deal, that's for our in-store financing with Synchrony.
Got it.
There's various promotional financing available on our web store as well with Affirm, so it's just different.
Got it. I mean, should we how much of we are recording in the shop for the second time maybe?
We've done it before.
I think so, with Lee.
Yeah. And we recorded next door with Joe Graney from Santa Cruz.
You're right, we did. Man, I like recording in the shop.
It's a little warm tonight. It was 100 degrees when I drove here at first.
It was 100 degrees. Yep.
We had to turn off the air conditioner so we could have the best sound quality we were capable of having at the time.
That's right. I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fine. So, the Pivot Shuttle SL, different builds. You can pre-order them on the website if you want. And you have kind of a full run coming in.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I know. I ordered a lot of them.
Awesome. It's exciting.
Enough of them to maybe need to hire someone to build them all.
Right. Other bike things. I binge watched. I don't binge watch a whole bunch of things, but I've actually binge listened to several bike checks. And so if the folks out there in the world haven't kind of watched or listened to bike checks, I listened to Brian Blair's bike check on his Kona Sutra.
Pretty sweet, huh? Did you like the part where he kind of got kind of loud?
Yeah, I did. That was awesome.
That had everyone cracking up.
Yeah, man. And the walk-up music was impressive.
Yeah. Brian's the man.
Yeah, that was great.
So that's on our YouTube channel, the Path Bike Shop YouTube channel. Is that where you saw it?
I did. The Path YouTube channel. Man, I couldn't help but think that Brian has, I think, not a previous generation of this bike, but he's always had cool fat tire road bikes, off-road, road mountain bikes, however you want to call it. I think
the man is a visionary.
He is. A long time ago, he had a Moots YBP Cyclo X type of bike. It was a kind of a soft tail, had a little bit of suspension on the seat stay to the seat post, and then it was kind of a slightly slacked out, head angle. And he held slightly fatter tires than normal. And so I think the Sutra is an evolution of that.
Yeah. Do you remember when single speed Dan 29ers were kind of a little rare in a rare combination, and he had, I think it was a Karate Monkey that he customized.
Oh, yeah.
He ground all the brake stops off and soap dishes and all the extra cable stops because it was a single speed and made it super clean, and then sanded it all perfect and then had it repainted, and it looked like some kind of custom $1,500 steel bike. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that Karate Monkey is an awesome bike.
Brian's a visionary for sure.
Yep.
And not to be trifled with.
That is very true. And very patient when you ride with him.
Yeah. He is one of the most steady and patient people I've ever met.
Yes.
The other day, I emailed him, and it was basically this item that I saw that we had on the way from Orbea, and in the picture it looked like the range extender for a Wild.
Right.
So I emailed Brian let's get some of these in stock and put them on our web catalog. Brian gets back to me with, and he tells me what it is because it's not what I thought it was.
Right.
He's like, oh, hey, Tani, it's real nice. And he's like, that is the the battery holder for this other bike and without skipping a beat. He's like, I think I'll get some range extenders from Orbea and ask how to get them on the web store. I'm just like, you're so patient and kind.
And now you actually do have range extenders for the Rise.
Right. So the Wild is a little bit different because you order some parts from Orbea, and then your dealer or the Path or whoever you're local to orders other parts from QBP.
Right.
And that was the part the confusion was on. But yeah, we recently did get range extenders for Rises in for the aluminum Rises, and which are different than carbon Rise range extenders.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those of you, and I would have bought these when I had an aluminum Rise. That sounds like a great accessory.
Yeah, not that I've ever run into range issues, but it would really give me confidence going and doing, say, like Harding Joplin and just using the boost as much as I want.
That's what I was exactly thinking. So the range extenders, that's great.
Okay, we're gonna talk about something that we're not allowed to talk about yet, but then we're just gonna forget about it because this podcast is gonna come out on Wednesday next week, which is going to be the day a new bike launches from Santa Cruz.
Oh, dang.
And on this day, all of the bikes that have 27.5 wheels on them will have 29-inch front wheels for the current version.
Gosh.
I think. Except for maybe I don't know. Because the 5010's going MX.
Oh my gosh. And is that the bike that we're going to forget about?
Yeah. So we don't really know about.
Right.
I mean, I know about it because I signed an NDA type deal, or, I have trusted information that I'm now bringing this show into the circle for a minute, and then we'll forget about it, and we'll talk about it more when it comes out next Wednesday,
right.
which is also when the show's coming out.
Yeah.
65.2, I think, head angle, something like that. Glove box, I think.
Right.
Kind of everything you would think I already kind of had this theory that most bikes eventually that are 27.5 in the back will not be 27.5 in the front anymore.
Right.
So we'll have 29ers and we'll have mixed wheel size bikes.
Right.
But we're not going to see a lot of 27.5 inch front wheels, I don't think.
Yep.
Except maybe on really small, like extra smalls and smalls.
Got it.
And people who are, not that there's no place in the world for that, but I think that it's going to be the third most popular configuration, and there's not much place in a lot of people's catalogs or bike shops for the third most popular configuration.
Right. Wow. So you think this is going to be maybe like 130, 140 type, but 130 in the rear, 140?
Yeah, it's everything you would expect from it's like how we have our trances built up except designed for it, or I have my trance built up except designed for it, and I think a little more travel than my trance has in the back. I think it's a 120 rear. I think 120, 130, or 130, 140, something like that.
I haven't seen the specs, but I'm going to guess 130, 140.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Nice. I think that's a good guess and probably accurate.
Right. Man, that is great. It's going to have the shock horizontal by the bottom bracket.
Right? That'd be cool, right?
That would be really cool.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Oh my gosh.
I only can answer so many questions at this phase.
Okay.
But it is exciting, and by the time the show comes out, this will be on the Santa Cruz website, and everyone will be able to tell if it's a low link shock.
Oh my gosh. All righty. I can't wait.
But why would there be one bike in the lineup if there's not going to be one bike if it's going to be like all the other bikes in every other way, why would it not be like
That's right.
And I think anyone who's been watching Santa Cruz, it would be pretty, I think there's been some holdout. People like, no, they're not going to mess the 5010 up by making it a 29 front wheel. And because that bike has such a kind of a connected heritage, there's a rider that's passionate about that ride experience, and there's not a lot of places to find it, and that bike is kind of iconic and kind of archetypical, like the original mold almost of that ride experience. One of the original molds, right?
Right.
So it says a lot about where Santa Cruz thinks riding is going with wheel size, and I think it's also where I've thought it's going for a long time. And I think that during the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of incentive to innovate, to make new molds and new bike models, and that I think slowed down. I really think 2020 was going to be the year of the mixed wheel size bike, or 2021, and I think that the pandemic
shifted that,
pushed that back a little bit, because no one wanted to invest in something that might delay. First of all, everything needed to come sooner, not later. So why innovate? Why change anything?
Right.
But now that things are getting back to normal, I think it's time for probably the rest of the world that hasn't already been keyed into it, to figure out that MX is a big deal, or mullet, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm excited. I think for me, it's a good thing. I've been a lot of us have been kind of patching that to get that experience together from what's available for a while now.
Right.
And I think it begs the question of, if mixed wheel size is better for everyone except really tall people, which I don't think that's the case. I think that there are tall people who will like mixed wheel size.
Right.
And I think there's people our height there are times when I prefer dual 29. Right. And I think even really short riders sometimes benefit from dual 29 in certain situations.
Right.
But if what I am seeing, though, is sales-wise, the taller riders are slower to pick up the mixed wheels. And that can be read a lot of different ways. And it can be read just that there's not as much of a problem to solve, so they're not keying into some of the benefits.
Right.
It can also be read that what they really need is 29 rear and 31 front, right, or something like that.
Right. That'll be, yep.
Or in which case, that got me to thinking, if the average human was, say, 6'3",
would we be riding?
What wheel size would we all be on? And I don't think it's 29.
Right.
I think it's probably bigger than 29.
Yeah. It's like the basketball players who have mountain bikes. They have custom-made large diameter wheel bikes.
I've heard of that.
Yep.
People sewing tires together and stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Man, that sounds okay. Yeah. Man, I just watched Zach's Trent's bike check. I listened to Zach's.
He kept that dual 29, I think.
No, he did MX on that. Yep. 120 MX, always in the high position. Yep, with an angle set on the front. It's probably going to have very similar geometry to said bike that I forgot about what we were talking about.
The new 5010.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when we had, did you have a Solo? I had a Solo.
I did.
Before the 5010.
Before Solo
was called
got.
the 5010.
Yeah, because
it was called
the
a Solo.
got, yep. And the 5010 looks a lot like Solo.
Another brand had like a cyclocross bike or a gravel bike called a Solo, so they had to change. Santa Cruz had to change the name to. And 5010, I think, just kind of looks like Solo.
It does. I think that's why it got changed to that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just start calling it the Solo. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
I think it's time for an update on the inventory situation, because
totally.
we kept giving it updates on that. We haven't for a while. There has begun to be a shift, and certain bikes can be custom ordered now, where for a long time people would ask us, can I custom order this bike? And the staff had gotten to the point where they knew it wasn't even worth checking.
Right.
They'd just be like, we could put it on order, but like the ETA is going to be like it might be a different bike by the time you get it at a different price.
Right.
Like we can't guarantee anything.
Right.
And that's a tough spot to be in. So that's shifting, where like 3 times last week, I think some different people I know were like, hey, like I know there's a shortage, but like, can you do me a favor and just see if you can help me find this bike? And I called or emailed the rep, and they had it, or they were like, oh, that's coming in 3 weeks, or that kind of thing.
Right.
So I've been telling the staff, like, oh, you know that thing where we have been like not even bothering to check if a bike can be ordered.
Right.
It's like, you should check now.
Wow.
Yeah. And to that point too, some of our vendors and in some have certain categories where they have too many bikes, and we have even categories where we have too many bikes. So we talked about it on a recent show, and it's continued. There's certain bikes that we have on sale and we haven't had really bikes on sale since before the pandemic. And at one point, I think we had 11 extra large giant Trans 29 3s from 2021. And so we got those on sale. We promoted them and stuff. I think now we're down to 3. Still too many, but it's a lot better than 11. But I hadn't seen a problem like that where it was like, oh, we have an overstock on this in a long time.
Right.
So there's still all kinds of bikes. Like if you want a Shuttle SL, it's like, oh, we'll get you an ETA. Might take us a week to get you an ETA that's like has like a decent level of certainty at best.
Right.
Right. Like,
right.
So, but other bikes, it's like, oh no, that's in our build schedule, and we can get you that in 3 weeks. So we're kind of back to that. It's worth asking. So we're still, for a lot of bikes, in that same pandemic mode of like, it might not be orderable even, and like for sure there's like no one's getting any deals.
Right.
And then there's other bikes where it's like, oh, maybe we can order that. And then there's a few bikes in the shop where it's like, oh no, we need to get rid of one.
Right.
So it's not the same as it was before, where it was just like, we can barely get bikes. If we have any bikes that we think that's a win, like we're proud of that.
Right.
Like,
right. Exactly.
So.
Oh well, that's good to hear.
It's good and bad. Everything has its.
Well, hopefully you're able to get to move the inventory that needs to be moved.
Yes.
And get to a healthy level on that, and then also, it's nice when you have the option of custom ordering bikes that might not be here on the shop floor.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I were to look around the shop, what else? Does anything else come to mind in that space?
Forks and tires continue to be hit and miss. Like sometimes we can get the one you want, sometimes we can't.
Right.
Like Rain E continues to be, if we get one, it sells right away, and I can't really order more. There might be one or two more coming at some point, but I can't add to that. Right. And there's a lot of bikes still like that, especially the hot e-bikes.
Right.
The hardtail situation's gotten a little easier. They're more available, and the like under $3,000 full suspension bikes are still can be like, I still don't have like a Trans 27.5 medium right this second, I don't think.
Right.
But that's a bike we would often sell like 2 a week of.
Right.
Just in any environment.
Sure.
It's like a classic first nice bike for a medium-sized person, like in that like mid $2,000 price range. But we have something like that probably from Norco and maybe Rocky and maybe Orbea too, and maybe
the sight and the optic I saw on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are exciting.
And the Fluid FS.
Fluid FS.
The Fluid FS.
Nope, that's actually really good. Yeah. How about a trials bike in stock?
Auk is looking up at my, like, I don't know what mid 2000s Woodman trials bike. Hand from the rafters. That's right. I think it's pretty sweet though.
It is. I should bring in my Echo. Could we make another spot for the Echo?
You see all the zip ties on that thing?
Yeah.
So I was tripping out in the workshop the other day, and we got new many months back. We got the lift style stands that do e-bikes and are just better for everyone because you can adjust the work height of the bike that you're working on. And I noticed the other day that in the past, at our old work stands, they all had little buckets for zip tied to them.
Right.
And because zip ties were a big part of
any bike,
of a lot of mountain bikes for a long time.
For sure.
And at first I was like, I got a little bit like, this is why I'm around still, because I just always have to like make sure we, have things that the people that our techs need to do their jobs. And then I kind of got to thinking about it, and I started looking around, and none of the bikes on the floor have zip ties on them anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And that's been true for a while. As the more I think about it, this is like an old mentality.
You are not kidding.
Right. And these days too, would you buy a bike that you needed zip ties for cable management on? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Oh
So our industry's come a long way.
It has. I mean, not to put the trials bike down, but I think there's probably 8 zip ties on there. 7 or 8 that I counted.
Geez, at least.
At least. Yep.
Gosh.
Yep. And you could add another 3 if you wanted to do some cable management. You know that.
And we used to make standoffs with zip ties for other zip tie loops and stuff.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
With cable housing ends,
like creativity. I mean, oh my gosh.
and we would cut up like 5mm surgical tubing to make standoffs for zip ties, and we had so much cable management process that was not from the bike industry and not designed into the bikes.
So you mean, have you removed?
So now there's a community zip tie bucket in the community supplies area.
Oh, got it. And do you find that going? I bet
we'll need a community. I mean, it's always nice to have a zip tie around, even if it's just a zip tie apart to something. Or
man, I need to go home and think about how many zip ties But that is so true, though. I find myself less and less going back to my zip tie bucket. It's not zip tied onto my bike stand, but
it's a nice thing to have in a workshop, but it's no longer a basic bike supply for high-end mountain bikes, which is actually awesome.
That is. It is. If you look around the bike shop, there are zip ties being used to hold wheel sets together as they hang from the roofs.
Yes.
But I guess because a lot of cable management, there's not long enough runs of cable outside of a bike.
Some of the cheaper bikes and kids' bikes require zip ties.
Yeah. How do they do that for bikes that have external cable routing?
Like the little soap dishes with the plastic clips is a common move.
Right. That's... I'm gonna have to. I gotta absorb that a little bit.
It took me a minute, and I love that stuff. Like I love when the crew gets far enough ahead of me to kind of almost get me emotional, and then I catch myself before I make a fool of myself too much, and then talk about it on the podcast.
Oh man, come on, guys, you got to keep the zip tie.
I actually didn't say anything. I figured it out before I said like, hey, what happened? This is the first time I've talked about it.
Wow. That's
And then I was like, oh, this is podcast material.
This is so did they just took them off without you, one by one?
I don't know if it just atrophied.
Right.
Or if maybe Zach or someone kind of made the call.
Right.
And we like to have a culture where we reward initiative,
totally.
and it's okay to be wrong, and it's safe to. So like, if I had come to the conclusion that we still needed zip ties at every station, I would have gotten my emotions under control and supportively framed it as like, hey, like I'm helping everyone have what they need, kind of thing, and not tried to make sure that it wasn't a reason for anyone to feel unsafe, to be wrong about something,
right?
To make a judgment call, right?
Right.
But it's nice when I end up agreeing too.
Yeah, without them having to have gone through.
If sometimes they have to be the one to teach me.
Yeah,
that's okay too.
I wonder if there's any side conversations that went on as this was happening.
Maybe someone will let us know if someone on the staff listens to the podcast.
This will be a test.
It might be someone who doesn't work here anymore who made the call. Could be.
That could be. I wonder how long it's been.
But there are a few people who, if they had made that decision while setting something up, all I would say is, I think I think that it's cool that you were trying to figure out the best way to do this, but I think we still need zip ties. It wouldn't be a big deal. I would try to keep it not a big deal, but I love it when they're right. I love it when I'm just trying to keep up and I can.
That's actually that's a great feeling, I think. Not I think I know. That's a great feeling.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you know that truly, man, the staff that you're working on is taking the shop farther than you could have done yourself. I mean, that's probably been true for a long time.
I think the big key to getting that is making it feel safe to fail, which is a lot more than just not punishing failure.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm having a lot of those experiences these days. Like feeling like this is fantastic, and yeah, my staff helps me feel safe too in this space.
Yeah, that's good. that's good.
This is great. New 5010.
You know, another trend that I noticed while I was in the shop the last couple of weeks that I thought would be interesting for our podcast listeners, a lot of them were in something I do, and then I noticed that a lot of the kind of more picky, reflective, in the know, experienced bike setup riders do, is they run a discrete, or we run a discrete bar clamp for our dropper post.
Right.
And really the main reason for that is that with a lot of brake lever shifter setups and dropper posts, I can't get the dropper post far enough in to not rub the knuckle of my thumb.
Yeah.
And still have my brake levers where I want them and all the other things, and shifters and
right.
And that's a deal breaker. That's like kind of a borderline deal breaker for me, is if in the position that my hands rest on the grips, when I move a certain way or flex a certain way, the knuckle of my thumb gets ground into by the pointy. It's usually a pointy part of a dropper post lever.
Yes. See, I have that.
You have an injury to show for it.
I do.
And that's the same reason why on my AXS stuff, I take the perches and I take the right perch and put it on the left.
Yeah.
And I take the left perch and put it on the right.
Yeah.
And then slide them all, because that buys you more inward movement. And then slide them all the way in.
See, I don't have to do that because we put our levers in a slightly different position. And I think my hands have tiny hands. So I don't quite need that extra space. This was because I thought I could do it. I was like, ooh, I think I might be able to use the integrated. And nope.
And so now you have a discrete bar clamp again.
I do. And it's helping my thumb heal. I've tried that on, yeah.
And so for our listeners who aren't as keyed in on this, most of the bikes on that we sell, the dropper post remote is bolted to the brake levers directly and doesn't have its own clamp on the handlebars. And there is quite a bit of adjustment, on the one that Auk was just looking at. It's a Fox, and there's different holes you can mount it, and it's definitely got some adjustment. But and it kind of looks too like that one might be far enough in for me.
Well,
but
maybe, yeah.
That brake might be too far in for a lot of riders because it's really far in, and the Shimanos have short levers.
That's exact. When I was doing the PK brake squeeze, I thought, I bet you Tani could ride it like this.
Those look borderline too far in for me with Shimano. That's maybe more where I'd run a SRAM lever, which is a longer lever blade.
Yep.
Or a SRAM clamp, that is.
I could not ride like that. I'd have to move them out.
I like my brakes way inboard, and that looks a little far in for me.
Yeah. See, that's the difference. I have petite hands. I've probably mentioned that before. Yeah, discrete bar clamps for the dropper post. Do you think most of the shop rides like that?
I haven't really looked at employee bikes with that in mind to check, but I think it's very common with discerning riders who have kind of an itch for the setup. There's the rider who just gets on it and adapts to what it is. And that's actually most riders.
Right.
And all of us have a little bit of that, or even the finickiest of us have some of that gene in us, where if you don't fix it for long enough, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Starts to, so I think though that people who are finicky about their setup, which is a total path customer thing to be, I mean, it's not all of our customers, but
Right.
those people find their way here because they're looking for someone who can
Right.
have a conversation with them about it and stick with them, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, I think that's really common among people who are doing things like moving their brake. A lot of people get on the bike and they ride it how they got it.
Right.
And maybe
Right.
if something really stands out to them as different than what they're used to, they might change that.
Right. Right. And if the way it comes stock doesn't let them adjust it where they're used to have riding even their other bike, they just readjust to this new way.
And even as someone who's been doing this a really long time and who has often had a little bit of foresight of like what is actually going to happen next in the industry and stuff, so often I just accept that maybe it's me who's wrong.
Right. Right.
Like that, I think, is my current view of how I think I kind of let myself buy into conventional wisdoms that didn't feel right on crank length, and accept that things just weren't going to feel good to me and didn't take it to the next step of figuring out that it was because I was running the same crank length as Greg Minar.
Right. Exactly.
So.
Yeah. I still haven't put my 155s on. I got to get those on.
Get them on.
I will.
Those are the 5 devs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I follow 5dev on Instagram, and they've got some really nice posts. I really like the aesthetic of what they're putting out. The cranks, the stems, yeah.
I like that tie stem for sure. I feel like the cranks are polarizing, even like within the Tanis.
Even within the Tanis, they're polarizing.
Yeah.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
There's a Tani inside me that really likes them, and there's a Tani inside me that's like, I don't know, that's kind of a lot on this bike, and it looks weird and doesn't conform to my idea of a crank.
Well, they got half of it right, maybe.
The short part,
Yep.
and like really cool people making really high quality and locally part.
Yep.
Yeah, that part's cool.
Yeah. Cool.
And I do think having a polarizing aesthetic is good. I think too many people play it safe, and that's part of what I like about it is that it's kind of polarizing.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that become kind of normal start out that way too. So maybe eventually that'll be just what we expect to see is kind of wider,
shorter cranks. It's like 29ers.
Yeah. Everything's a 29er.
It is.
It's a Kona, it's a 29er.
It's a dropper post.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a listener question.
All right.
Maybe it's not a question, but it's an observation. So thanks to, I think it was Mark reached out to me via Instagram, was asking about the EP8 RS e-bike motor. It's the 60 Newton meter version of the EP8.
The one that's on the rise.
It's the one that's on the rise, and it's a little lighter weight.
Is it lighter?
I think it is.
I thought it was the same battery.
Maybe
I mean,
not.
the same
You're right.
motor.
Maybe it's just the battery.
Or the battery's lighter, but the motor's the same,
Yep.
I think.
He says he feels like it's tuned to an excessively high cadence.
I wonder if he's ridden other EP8 bikes.
I didn't write that down in my notes. But in your experience and I do believe that the RS is tuned for a slightly higher cadence.
Okay.
But I don't know. Do you notice that on your rise?
I definitely don't have to run a super high cadence to get some boost.
Right.
It might reward that, especially probably in the eco modes, I bet.
Right.
My general experience with e-bikes is that they reward a higher cadence than I tend to run on not e-bikes. So I might have so much bias against the level of cadence that e-bikes tend to want that they all seem like that to me.
Right.
I do think the Yamaha Giant collaboration definitely is more kind of cadence flexible in its
right,
power delivery.
right,
Doesn't force you into as high of a cadence to get power out of it.
right.
And I think measures torque and other stuff, incline, more. I mean, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was riding my Rise, I'd be interested to see what other people, what their experience has been. But I don't know. Maybe I pedal with a slightly higher cadence.
Well, as someone who does some running and who has decent cardio, that would kind of match your profile, I
Maybe,
think.
yeah.
Runners tend to sometimes have higher cadence than not runners.
Right.
And people with good cardio tend to sometimes have higher cadence.
Yeah. I've actually been riding my road bike as I commute, like a true tiny narrow tire road bike. And there is a slightly higher cadence that I feel more comfortable at. So.
And by narrow these days, what does that mean?
Yeah, this is 23 millimeter tires.
Old school narrow.
Old school narrow. Yeah, not the 28s.
I might have some 19s for you if you want.
That's right. Yeah, and the rims I think are also pretty narrow, 21. So even road bike rims are much wider these days.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You think road bike rims would have gotten wider if mountain bikers didn't do it?
My understanding is it has to do with aerodynamics, but that's a good question.
You think mountain bike rims would have gotten wider if there wasn't downhilling and enduroing and park riding?
Maybe not.
So I don't know. These sorts of things fascinate me.
Yeah.
What drives the progression?
Yeah. And it may not. Maybe the concept of wider rims, regardless of where it started, let people start exploring it. And then maybe as they explored it, led to, it actually has benefits that they hadn't initially anticipated.
Yeah. Well, and I bet too, if there wasn't already a conversation about higher volume still being fast and everything, just being aero wouldn't have maybe been good enough.
Right.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I'm still riding old school on my road bike.
I just picture so much deflection and bouncing around.
110 psi every day. I'm kidding. But I do pump them up to 90. And that's probably pretty high.
And that's almost sketchy low with that low volume too, though, for like pinch flats and everything.
Yeah. I'm just cautious over anything rough.
Yeah.
You've been riding these days?
Very little. I have a lot of work projects and kid projects going on and still doing a lot of PT that's taking up what maybe would be my ride time some weeks too.
Right.
So a little bit, but I've got some big trips that I'm hoping to do in about 6 to 8 weeks, some cool riding trips. So I need to ride so that I can enjoy them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Like week-long, multi-week?
I need to nail down some details, and I don't want my kids to hear about first on the podcast.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. Me too. I haven't been riding dirt. I pedal my bike to work every day, so I mean that's one thing. But I haven't been on the dirt.
In how long?
I went out once last week, but maybe once in probably been 2 weeks, which is a long time for me.
Yeah, you usually are 2-3 times a week in the dirt.
Yep.
Pretty regularly for 20 years or something.
Yep. And yeah, what I realized is, so I have two boys, and they're going off to college here in a few weeks. And what I've realized is I am absorbing as much of that time that I have, and so what could have been go on a bike ride ends up trying to, get in a strategy game here with them, or
you'll have plenty of time to ride when your nest is empty.
That's
in 3 weeks. Is that what it is?
In 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Actually, one of them is in 1 week.
Yeah.
And then, the other is in 2.5 weeks. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But what I've realized is, and probably, and what I probably part of why I brought it up was I don't feel guilty about not riding on the dirt because I know it'll come back. And there's other things that, like, for little phases of life, fill the space. But I know that time on the dirt's going to come back, and I'm looking forward to that. But enjoying this
and feeling guilty about it wouldn't get you back out there anyway.
That's right.
That's not how human psychology works.
It would detract from the space that I'm at, and I try not to let that happen.
It reminds me of another thing that it's a little like thought experiment that's come up in my in my quest for mental and emotional health for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is this idea that I don't need to get all worked up and get confrontational when I feel like I need to stand up for myself, because I trust myself to stand up for myself.
Right. I like that.
You trust yourself that you're going to get back out on the dirt, so it's no big deal.
That's right.
You can start again.
I can start. That's true. Yeah, so for those of you folks that are out there, you haven't gotten out for a little while because you've got other things going on in a space, and that you're like dedicating that focus to that, embrace that, and appreciate it for what it is. Trust yourself that you'll get back out there.
Start again.
Start again.
Like we did with the podcast.
That's right. That's right.
You can always start again.
Took us a little while, and appreciate Sean at the path. He's helping us out.
Sean is our collaborator now.
I know. Thank you much, sincerely.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a podcast.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Auk. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Path Crew. Thanks to the listeners and vendors and riders everywhere. And let's all remember to love the bike we ride.